I'm Samantha, 32, and last Saturday I was hosting my best friend Rachel's baby shower after months of careful planning. The restaurant garden looked perfect with blue and white decorations, and Rachel was glowing at 7 months pregnant. Everything was going wonderfully until my husband Marcus, who'd been checking his phone repeatedly, suddenly gripped my arm during the gift opening. "We have to go," he whispered urgently. His face was pale, his voice shaking. I was mortified. Before I dive into what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about friendship, loyalty, and moments that change everything. Rachel and I have been inseparable since our sophomore year of high school. I still remember the first day we met in Mrs. Johnson's English class. I was the new kid, awkwardly fumbling with my schedule in the hallway when Rachel approached me with her bright smile and offered to help. "You look like you could use a friend," she said, leading me to the right classroom. That simple act of kindness blossomed into a friendship that would carry us through the next 15 years. We supported each other through everything: college applications, heartbreaks, career setbacks. When Rachel failed her nursing board exams the first time, I stayed up all night with her, making flashcards and bringing coffee. When I got laid off from my first marketing job, she helped me revamp my resume and practiced interview questions until I landed an even better position. We were bridesmaids at each other's weddings, and we still maintained our tradition of weekly coffee meetups and monthly dinner dates, even as our lives got busier. Our husbands became friends too, though not as close as Rachel and I. Kevin was quieter than my Marcus, more reserved but equally kind. The four of us would get together for game nights or summer barbecues, and it always felt right, like we were building our adult lives alongside each other exactly as we'd planned. Rachel's journey to pregnancy wasn't easy. For 3 years, she and Kevin tried to conceive naturally before turning to fertility treatments. I watched my best friend endure the emotional roller coaster of scheduled intimacy, disappointment each month, and the gradual loss of spontaneity in their marriage. When they finally decided to try IVF, Rachel was hopeful but cautious. The first round failed. I remember holding her hand in her living room as she cried, wondering if she'd ever become a mother. The second attempt resulted in a brief pregnancy that ended at 8 weeks. That loss nearly broke her. Rachel took a leave of absence from her job at the hospital, and Kevin started working from home to support her through the depression that followed. "I don't know if I can do this again, Sam," she told me during one of our coffee dates, her eyes red from crying. "But I also don't know if I can give up." I researched everything I could about IVF success rates, joining online forums, and even attending a support group meeting with her. When they decided to try one final round, using their last 2 viable embryos, I drove Rachel to every appointment while Kevin was stuck at an unavoidable business conference. When she called me, screaming with joy that the pregnancy test was positive, I cried too. When they passed the 12-week mark, we allowed ourselves to truly believe this miracle was happening. Rachel's belly grew, the baby started kicking, and her face regained the light that had dimmed during those difficult years. As her best friend, I appointed myself chief supporter. I accompanied her to doctor appointments when Kevin couldn't make it, researched the safest baby products, and held her hair back during the worst of her morning sickness. When it came time to plan her baby shower, I threw myself into it completely. This wasn't just any party. It was a celebration of Rachel's perseverance, her rainbow after the storm. My husband Marcus was always supportive of my friendship with Rachel. He understood the bond we shared and never complained when I spent extra time helping her through the difficult patches. Marcus and I met 6 years ago at our mutual friend Taylor's wedding. I was a bridesmaid, and he was a groomsman who caught my bouquet when I tossed it over my shoulder during photos. We started talking at the reception and didn't stop until the venue was closing down. What I loved most about Marcus was his thoughtfulness. He was a resident at the local hospital then, training to become an emergency physician. Despite his grueling schedule, he never forgot to check in when he said he would. He was calm under pressure, logical but compassionate, qualities that made him excellent at his job and an amazing partner. That's why his recent behavior had been so confusing. In the weeks leading up to Rachel's shower, Marcus had been working late more often, taking phone calls in another room and seeming distracted during our conversations. When I asked if everything was okay, he assured me it was just work stress. I believed him because trust had always been the foundation of our relationship, but something felt off. The night before the shower, I found him in our home office, intently focused on his laptop screen. "What are you researching so intensely?" I asked, bringing him a cup of tea. He quickly closed the laptop. "Just a patient case I'm consulting on. Thanks for the tea." He changed the subject to the shower preparations, asking if I needed any last-minute help. I pushed aside my concerns. Tomorrow was about Rachel, not my suspicions about Marcus's unusual behavior. Whatever was going on with him would have to wait. Planning Rachel's baby shower had been a labor of love spanning 3 months of careful coordination. I wanted everything to be perfect for her. She deserved nothing less after everything she'd been through. I created a shared document with Rachel's mother Judith and her younger sister Megan, delegating tasks based on our strengths. Judith handled family invitations and helped with the budget, Megan took charge of games and music, and I oversaw the venue, decorations, and food. Finding the perfect venue wasn't easy. Rachel had mentioned once that she'd love a garden party setting, but with her February due date, an outdoor event wasn't practical in our climate. After visiting 7 different locations, I finally discovered Bellamy's, an upscale restaurant with a glass-enclosed garden room that offered the perfect compromise. The space featured living walls of greenery, a bubbling fountain, and enough natural light to make it feel like the outdoor setting Rachel had dreamed of, all while being climate-controlled and comfortable for a pregnant woman. I spent countless evenings designing custom decorations that would transform the already beautiful space into something magical. The color scheme was soft blues and whites. Rachel was having a boy, with silver accents throughout. I ordered personalized napkins with Baby Thompson printed in elegant script, commissioned a local artist to create a custom welcome sign, and handmade garlands of paper stars to hang from the ceiling. Each centerpiece featured white hydrangeas and blue delphinium in silver mercury glass vases, surrounded by framed ultrasound photos and baby blocks spelling out BOY. The guest list was another complex puzzle to solve. Rachel's family was large and opinionated, particularly her Aunt Linda, who had a comment about everything from Rachel's choice of hospital to the baby's name. The college friend group came with its own complications, particularly since one of them, Allison, had briefly dated Kevin before he met Rachel, creating an undercurrent of awkwardness that never fully dissipated despite the passing years. Rachel's work colleagues added another layer of complexity, especially since her boss Patricia was attending. Patricia was known for her exacting standards and formal demeanor, making me worry about keeping the event both fun and appropriately professional. Kevin's family members were traditional and conservative, likely to raise eyebrows at some of the more risque baby shower games that Megan had suggested. Balancing all these different personalities and expectations while keeping the focus on celebrating Rachel required diplomatic skills I didn't know I possessed. The morning of the shower arrived with a perfect blue sky that matched our decorations. I woke up at 5 a.m., too anxious to sleep, mentally reviewing my checklist for the 100th time. Marcus found me in the kitchen, surrounded by last-minute items and muttering to myself. "Everything's going to be perfect," he assured me, pouring coffee into my favorite mug. "Rachel will love it because you planned it." I was about to thank him when my phone rang. It was the bakery, calling to inform me that there had been a refrigeration issue overnight and the custom cake I'd ordered, designed to look like stacked baby blocks with edible decorations that matched our theme, was ruined. The bakery offered a generic replacement, but it wouldn't be the same. "I don't understand how this happens," I cried after hanging up. The cake was the centerpiece of the dessert table. Marcus, ever practical, took charge. "Give me the number of that bakery on Main Street, the one that did Taylor's birthday cake last month. I'll see what they can do on short notice." While I finished packing the car with decorations and gifts, Marcus made calls. By some miracle, he managed to find a bakery willing to prioritize a rush order that would be ready just in time for the shower. When he returned from picking it up, I could have kissed him. The replacement cake was actually more beautiful than the original design. Despite solving the cake crisis, Marcus seemed distracted as he helped load the car. He checked his phone repeatedly, frowning at the screen before quickly pocketing it when he noticed me watching. "Is everything okay at the hospital?" asked, wondering if he might get called in. "Everything's fine," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's get you to the venue. You've got a best friend to make happy today." We arrived at Bellamy's 2 hours early to set up. The restaurant manager, Anthony, greeted us warmly and showed us to the garden room. Even empty, it took my breath away, sunlight streaming through the glass ceiling, the fountain creating a soothing background melody, potted palms and ferns creating natural dividers throughout the space. Marcus and I worked together to transform it, hanging the star garlands, setting up the gift table, and arranging the centerpieces. I created a display table with childhood photos of Rachel, pregnancy journey pictures, and cards where guests could write advice for the new parents. The replacement cake took center stage on the dessert table, surrounded by blue and white cupcakes, chocolate-dipped pretzels, and cookies shaped like baby items. As I fussed with the final details, the first guests began to arrive. Rachel's mother Judith came early, bringing additional flower arrangements and immediately rearranging the gift table to her liking. I bit my tongue, reminding myself that this day wasn't about my vision, but about celebrating Rachel and her baby. When Rachel finally arrived with Kevin, her reaction made all the stress worthwhile. She stopped in the doorway, one hand on her prominent baby bump, the other covering her mouth in surprise. "Sam," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "It's exactly what I dreamed of." I hugged her carefully, mindful of her belly. "Nothing but the best for you and little Benjamin." As more guests filtered in, I caught Marcus watching Rachel with an odd expression. Not quite worry, but something close to it. When I approached him, he quickly smiled and offered to get me a drink from the bar, effectively ending any chance to ask what was bothering him. Rachel made her grand entrance at precisely 1 o'clock, glowing in a pale blue maternity dress that accentuated her 7-month belly perfectly. Her dark hair was styled in loose waves, and she wore a mommy-to-be sash that her sister Megan had insisted on. Kevin stood proudly beside her, his hand resting protectively on the small of her back, beaming at everyone as they entered. The room erupted in excited chatter as guests rushed to greet the parents-to-be. Rachel's grandmother Agnes dabbed tears from her eyes, whispering about how she never thought she'd live long enough to see her first great-grandchild. Rachel's colleagues from the hospital brought a giant teddy bear wearing scrubs, a nod to both parents' medical professions. Kevin worked in hospital administration, though in a different facility than Rachel and Marcus. After giving everyone time to arrive and mingle, I gently tapped a spoon against my glass to gather attention for Rachel's welcome. "Thank you all for coming today to celebrate Rachel, Kevin, and baby Benjamin," I began, my voice thick with emotion. For those who know their journey, this day is especially meaningful. "Rachel, you're going to be the most amazing mother." Rachel stood, one hand cradling her belly. "I want to thank my incredible friend Samantha for putting this all together. Sam has been my rock through everything. The disappointments, the doctor's appointments, the middle-of-the-night anxiety calls. This beautiful shower is just one more example of her friendship, and I'm so grateful." We locked eyes across the room, and 15 years of friendship passed between us in that glance. No words could capture what we'd been through together or how deeply we cared for each other. The shower activities began with icebreaker games designed to get the diverse group of guests interacting. Megan had created a "How well do you know the parents?" quiz that revealed some surprising facts, like how Kevin had fainted during their first ultrasound appointment or how Rachel had already bought 20 different baby outfits despite claiming she wasn't going shopping until after the shower. The game also highlighted the personality differences among the guests. Rachel's work colleagues approached it with analytical precision, while her college friends turned it into a competitive sport. Kevin's mother answered every question with a story about Kevin's own childhood, and Rachel's Aunt Linda managed to make each response sound vaguely judgmental. The catered lunch was served at elegantly set tables, with special accommodations for Rachel's pregnancy cravings. The chef had created a mocktail that satisfied her strange desire for grapefruit and rosemary, and there was a separate plate of pickle spears and chocolate sauce, a combination that made everyone else cringe, but had been Rachel's go-to snack during her second trimester. During the meal, guests took turns sharing stories about Rachel and making predictions about the baby. Would he have Rachel's artistic talent or Kevin's mathematical mind? Rachel's dark curls or Kevin's straight blonde hair? Rachel's mother predicted he would be a doctor like his mother, while Kevin's father insisted he showed signs of being athletic already, judging by how actively he kicked. Throughout these activities, I noticed several concerning details. Rachel winced occasionally and shifted uncomfortably in her seat. At first, I attributed it to normal pregnancy discomfort, but when it happened a fourth time during lunch, I became worried. Kevin seemed to notice too, checking his phone repeatedly as if expecting an important call. Once, he stepped out of the room to take a call, returning with a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Rachel's mother was also behaving strangely, having whispered conversations with Kevin in the corner and watching Rachel with more intensity than usual. When I approached to ask if everything was okay, Judith quickly assured me that she was just being a nervous grandmother-to-be. Marcus observed these same details, I realized, catching him watching the family with a physician's evaluating gaze. When our eyes met across the room, he gave me a reassuring nod, but I could tell something was bothering him. He kept his phone in his hand rather than his pocket, glancing at it every few minutes. After lunch came the photo session I'd arranged. A professional photographer captured Rachel opening gifts, guests playing games, and posed group shots that would eventually fill the baby memory book I had created. Rachel posed with different groups, family, friends, colleagues, her smile never wavering despite what I now recognized as discomfort behind her eyes. Finally, it was time for the gift opening ceremony. Guests gathered in a semicircle around Rachel's decorated chair as she began unwrapping presents. Her colleagues from the hospital pooled resources to buy an expensive stroller system. Kevin's parents gave them a silver piggy bank and savings bonds for Benjamin's future education. Rachel's college friends created a first-year memory box with spaces for monthly photos, milestone cards, and tiny footprint impressions. When Rachel opened my gift, a handcrafted baby memory book that included sonogram photos, journal entries from her pregnancy journey, and spaces for all of Benjamin's firsts, she began to cry. "This must have taken you months," she said, carefully turning the delicate pages. "Just something to remember this journey by," I replied, squeezing her hand. As Rachel continued opening gifts, I noticed Marcus's body language growing increasingly tense. He stood slightly apart from the group, his posture rigid as he stared at his phone. When Rachel reached for the large gift from her Aunt Linda, Marcus suddenly went pale. He looked up from his phone screen with an expression of alarm that sent a chill through me. Before Rachel could untie the ribbon, Marcus crossed the room swiftly and leaned down to whisper in my ear. "We have to go," he said, his voice urgent but low. "Right now." The room seemed to freeze as Marcus's words registered. "We have to go." For simple words that made no sense in that moment. Rachel was midway through untying the elaborate bow on Aunt Linda's oversized gift, her fingers pausing as she noticed our exchange. The conversations around us dimmed as guests became aware of the tension. "What are you talking about?" I whispered back, mortified by the attention we were drawing. "I can't leave now." Marcus's face was uncharacteristically serious, his voice dropping even lower. "Trust me, Sam. It's important. We need to leave immediately." Rachel looked up, confusion and hurt crossing her face. "Is everything okay?" I fumbled for words, feeling my cheeks flush with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, Rachel. There's an emergency we need to deal with." "What kind of emergency?" Rachel's mother Judith asked sharply, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. Marcus stepped in smoothly, his doctor voice taking over, calm, authoritative. "Hospital situation. I've been called in urgently." He showed his phone as if it contained messages that would explain everything. The explanation seemed to satisfy most guests, but Rachel knew me too well. She could see the confusion in my eyes that didn't match our excuse. As Marcus gently but firmly guided me toward the door, I caught her expression, a mixture of hurt, worry, and betrayal that made my stomach twist with guilt. "I'll call you later," I promised weakly as we made our hasty exit, feeling the weight of judgmental glances from the other guests. Linda's disapproving sniff was particularly audible, and I heard her mutter something about commitment to family events. As soon as we reached the parking lot, my forced composure shattered. "What the hell, Marcus? That was humiliating. I've been planning this shower for months, and you dragged me out during the most important moment? Rachel will never forgive me." Marcus unlocked our car, but didn't immediately respond. His face was grim as he held my door open.
"Get in.
"I'll explain on the way home." The tension in the car was suffocating. Marcus drove with unusual intensity, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When I demanded an explanation, his responses were cryptic and infuriating. "This is about protecting Rachel," he said after my third attempt to get answers. "Protecting her from what? Her baby shower? The celebration she's been looking forward to for weeks? How exactly does embarrassing me and disappointing her protect her?" "I can't fully explain until we're home, and I can show you something," Marcus insisted. "Just trust me that I wouldn't have done this without a serious reason." "Is this about her pregnancy? Is something wrong with the baby?" My anger began to transform into worry. "It's related to her pregnancy, yes, but I need to verify some information before I say more." My frustration grew with each evasive answer. By the time we pulled into our driveway, I was vacillating between fury and fear. This wasn't like Marcus. He was typically straightforward, never mysterious or dramatic. Whatever had prompted his behavior must be significant. As soon as we entered the house, Marcus went straight to his laptop in the home office. I followed, watching as he quickly typed in a web address for the local news station. He scrolled through recent headlines until he found what he was looking for, then turned the screen toward me. The headline made my blood run cold. "Local OB/GYN Dr. James Thompson arrested for falsifying medical credentials." Dr. Thompson, Rachel's doctor. The man who had been overseeing her high-risk pregnancy for the past 7 months. "Oh my God," I whispered, sinking into the chair beside Marcus. "Is this for real?" "It broke 20 minutes ago," Marcus confirmed grimly. "A colleague in the ER sent me an emergency alert just as Rachel was opening gifts. The hospital is trying to contact all of Thompson's patients, but with it being Saturday..." I skimmed the article with growing horror.
Dr.
Thompson had apparently been practicing with falsified credentials for years. His medical license was fraudulent, his claimed education at prestigious institutions fabricated. Worse, there were allegations of malpractice affecting multiple pregnancies under his care. "Rachel doesn't know," I realized aloud. "No one at the shower knows. That's why I got us out of there," Marcus explained, his earlier urgency now making terrible sense. "I needed to confirm the details before saying anything, and I didn't want you to have to pretend everything was normal once you knew. Rachel needs to be told properly, not at her baby's shower surrounded by 20 people." The implications were overwhelming. Rachel's pregnancy was already high risk due to her previous losses. She had trusted Dr. Thompson completely, following his advice on medications, tests, and prenatal care. Every decision about her pregnancy had been guided by a man who apparently had no legitimate qualifications to provide that guidance. "We have to tell her right away," I said, reaching for my phone. Marcus gently placed his hand over mine. "Let's think this through carefully. She's 7 months pregnant at her baby shower. We need to approach this the right way." The full weight of what we discovered hit me like a physical blow.
Dr.
James Thompson, the specialist who had guided Rachel through her difficult pregnancy journey, the man she credited with helping her finally achieve a viable pregnancy after years of heartbreak, was a fraud. The article detailed allegations that were almost too shocking to comprehend. According to the breaking news report, Thompson had never attended the prestigious Johns Hopkins Medical School as he claimed. His medical license had been created using falsified documents and stolen credentials. For nearly 8 years, he had been practicing medicine without proper qualifications, specializing in fertility cases and high-risk pregnancies, precisely the vulnerable patients who needed genuine expertise the most. How could this happen? I asked, my voice shaking as I continued reading. Don't hospitals verify these things? He worked primarily out of his private practice, Marcus explained, his medical knowledge filling in the gaps. He had admitting privileges at St. Mary's, but that's often based on documentation review rather than thorough background investigation. Once he established himself, the system just assumed he was legitimate. The most devastating paragraph came near the end of the article. Authorities are investigating several cases of complications in pregnancies under Thompson's care, including 2 recent premature births resulting in neonatal intensive care admissions. Patients report Thompson prescribing non-standard medication regimens and unconventional treatment protocols. My mind immediately went to the special vitamins and supplements Thompson had prescribed for Rachel, formulations he claimed were his own proprietary blend that had helped many of his patients achieve successful pregnancies after fertility struggles. Rachel took them faithfully, twice daily. Marcus, I said slowly, Rachel has been taking Thompson's special prenatal supplements since before she got pregnant. He adjusted the formula 3 times during her pregnancy. Marcus's expression darkened. That's exactly what I'm worried about, without knowing what's actually in those supplements. I couldn't even finish the thought. The horror of what Rachel might have been unknowingly taking during her precious, hard-won pregnancy was too much to bear. I shouldn't have pulled you out of the shower like that, Marcus admitted. But when I saw the alert and realized what it meant for Rachel, all I could think was that we needed to process this information before facing her. I couldn't pretend everything was fine once I knew. My initial anger at Marcus melted away completely. His abrupt exit wasn't about undermining my planning or embarrassing me. It was about protecting our friend in the most compassionate way possible. You did the right thing, I assured him, squeezing his hand. I couldn't have kept this from showing on my face if we'd stayed. Now we faced an even more difficult decision: how and when to tell Rachel. She was still at her baby shower, surrounded by friends and family, celebrating a pregnancy that had taken years of heartbreak to achieve. Did we have the right to shatter that joy today? But could we ethically wait to share information that might affect her health and her baby's safety? I need to call Dr. Patel, Marcus decided, referring to his colleague who specialized in obstetrics at the hospital where he worked. She might have more insights about what Rachel should do immediately. While Marcus consulted with Dr. Patel, I researched everything I could find about falsified medical credentials and the potential impacts on patient care. The stories I found were terrifying: misdiagnosed conditions, unnecessary procedures, harmful medication interactions. My anxiety for Rachel and little Benjamin grew with each article I read. Dr. Patel confirmed our worst fears. Rachel needed immediate medical evaluation by a legitimate specialist. The unknown supplements she'd been taking could potentially contain harmful ingredients, and any medical advice Thompson had given needed to be reviewed by a qualified physician as soon as possible. We have to call her now, I said after Marcus relayed Dr. Patel's advice. Every minute matters. With trembling fingers, I dialed Rachel's number. It went to voicemail. She was still at the shower, probably still opening gifts and thanking guests, blissfully unaware that her world was about to change. I texted her instead. Rachel, please call me as soon as you can. It's important. I'm so sorry we left abruptly. 20 excruciating minutes later, my phone finally rang. Rachel's voice came through, a mixture of concern and lingering hurt.
Sam?
What's going on? Everyone's asking why you and Marcus disappeared in the middle of everything. I took a deep breath. Rachel, I need you to find a quiet place to talk. Is Kevin nearby? You're scaring me, she said, her voice immediately shifting from hurt to worry. Yes, Kevin's right here. We're in the restaurant office. Most guests are leaving now. I put the phone on speaker so Marcus could join the conversation. Rachel, Kevin, we have something important to tell you. It's about Dr. Thompson. My OB? What about him? Rachel asked. With as much gentleness as possible, Marcus explained the situation: the arrest, the fraudulent credentials, the investigation into his patient care practices. There was a long silence on the other end of the line after he finished. This is some kind of joke, right? Kevin finally said, his voice hollow. I wish it were, I responded softly. It's breaking news right now. Marcus got an alert from the hospital. But I'm 7 months pregnant, Rachel said, her voice rising with panic. He's prescribed me all these special supplements. He's scheduled my delivery. He said Benjamin was developing perfectly at my last appointment. Dr. Patel at University Hospital can see you immediately, Marcus interjected calmly. She's expecting your call and can do a complete evaluation today. I can't believe this is happening, Rachel whispered, and I could hear the tears in her voice. What if something's wrong with the baby? What if those supplements were harmful? Let's not panic until we know more, I said, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. The important thing is to get you checked by a legitimate doctor right away. The phone rustled as Kevin apparently took it from Rachel. We're heading to University Hospital now. Can you meet us there? We're already on our way, I promised. The emergency department at University Hospital was busier than usual that Saturday evening. Rachel sat on an exam table in a curtained area, still wearing her baby shower dress, tear tracks staining her cheeks. Kevin stood beside her, holding her hand so tightly his knuckles were white. I waited with them while Marcus consulted with Dr. Patel and other colleagues in the hallway. When the door finally opened, Dr. Patel entered with Marcus and another doctor she introduced as Dr. Winters, the head of maternal-fetal medicine. Their expressions were professionally neutral, giving away nothing about what they might be thinking. Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Patel began, addressing Rachel formally despite Marcus having explained their friendship. We'd like to run a comprehensive evaluation, including blood work, a detailed ultrasound, and fetal monitoring. We need to establish a new baseline for your pregnancy and review all the records from Dr. Thompson's care. Rachel nodded numbly. What about the supplements he prescribed me? Could they have hurt my baby? Dr. Winters stepped forward. We've contacted the pharmaceutical board to analyze the composition of those supplements. Until we know exactly what they contain, we can't say for certain. The good news is that most harmful substances would likely show symptoms you haven't been experiencing. Over the next 4 hours, Rachel underwent a battery of tests, while Kevin worked with hospital administration to release all of Rachel's medical records from Dr. Thompson's practice. I stayed by Rachel's side through each procedure, holding her hand during blood draws and trying to distract her with memories of college adventures during the lengthy ultrasound. The waiting was excruciating. Each time a doctor entered the room, Rachel tensed, clearly expecting the worst news. By midnight, when we were still waiting for some test results, the emotional toll had left all of us exhausted. I trusted him completely, Rachel whispered as we sat together in the dimly lit hospital room, monitors beeping softly in the background. I told other women trying to conceive to see him. I recommended him to my cousin, who's been trying for a baby. How could I not have known? This isn't your fault, I assured her. He fooled everyone, the medical board, the hospital, all of his patients. But I should have questioned those supplements, she insisted, her voice cracking. They weren't FDA approved. He said that was because they were his special formulation that worked better than standard prenatals. I was so desperate for this pregnancy to work that I didn't even question it. Kevin returned from another conversation with the doctors, looking drained. They've located 5 other patients of Thompson's who are currently pregnant. The hospital is contacting all of them tonight. Around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed with texts from several shower guests, including Rachel's mother. News of Thompson's arrest had spread, and they were frantically trying to reach Rachel. Judith's message was particularly accusatory. How could you and Marcus have left without telling us what is happening? We had to find out from the evening news. I showed the message to Marcus, feeling a fresh wave of guilt. Her mother thinks we abandoned Rachel when she needed support. We did what we thought was best in the moment, Marcus reminded me gently. Rachel needed to hear this privately, not in the middle of opening gifts with 20 people watching. Still, the criticism stung, especially coming from Judith, who had always been somewhat judgmental of my friendship with Rachel. The implication that I had somehow failed my best friend by not announcing devastating news at her baby shower seemed particularly unfair. By morning, Rachel's immediate test results had come back, bringing the first bit of good news in this nightmare. Preliminary indicators showed that the baby appeared healthy. His heart rate, growth measurements, and activity levels were all within normal ranges. Rachel's blood work showed no obvious toxicity, though some specialized tests were still pending. "We want to keep you for observation today," Dr. Winters explained during morning rounds. "And we'll need to see you twice weekly for the remainder of your pregnancy. Without knowing exactly what approach Thompson was taking with your care, we need to monitor you more closely than a typical pregnancy." Rachel nodded, some color finally returning to her cheeks. "And the supplements?" "Stop taking them immediately," Dr. Patel instructed. "We've sent samples for analysis, but regardless of what they contain, we'll prescribe standard prenatal vitamins that we know are safe." As medical decisions were being made, the personal fallout continued. Rachel's mother arrived at the hospital, immediately pulling me aside in the hallway. "I don't understand why you and Marcus left without saying anything," she hissed, keeping her voice low enough that Rachel couldn't hear from her room. "Do you know how humiliating it was to continue the shower as if nothing was wrong, only to have everyone's phones start buzzing with news alerts about Rachel's doctor?" "We were trying to protect Rachel," I explained, fighting to keep my own emotions in check. "Would you really have wanted her to find out surrounded by everyone?" "That should have been our family's decision to make," Judith insisted. "Not yours." The accusation hurt deeply. After 15 years of friendship, I considered myself part of Rachel's family. The implication that I had overstepped some boundary by trying to protect her cut to the core of my insecurities about our friendship. When I returned to Rachel's room, trying to hide how upset I was, she reached for my hand. "Mom's giving you a hard time, isn't she?" I tried to deflect. "She's just worried about you." "Listen to me," Rachel said firmly. "You did exactly the right thing. If I'd found out about Thompson at the shower, with everyone watching, I couldn't have handled it. You protected me from that public breakdown, and I'm grateful." Her words eased some of the ache in my chest, but the strain between me and Rachel's family remained palpable throughout the day. When Rachel was finally discharged that evening with a thick folder of new medical instructions and appointments, the unspoken tension followed us out of the hospital. In the days that followed, the Thompson scandal exploded across local and then national news. More patients came forward with stories of unusual treatment protocols and complications. A support group formed for the women affected, meeting in the hospital cafeteria on Wednesday evenings to share information and emotional support. Rachel attended each meeting, initially reluctant to speak, but eventually becoming a voice of calm and reason for more panicked mothers-to-be. I accompanied her to these meetings, watching my formerly trusting friend transform into someone who questioned every medical decision and researched every recommendation her new doctors made. "I'll never blindly trust a doctor again," she told me after a particularly difficult support group session where one woman revealed she'd lost her baby at 30 weeks under Thompson's care. "I keep wondering what else I've accepted without question that might not be true." The ripple effects touched every aspect of our lives. Rachel developed anxiety about her approaching delivery, insisting on meeting every member of the medical team who might potentially be involved. Kevin became overprotective, questioning hospital staff about their credentials and taking extensive notes during every appointment. Their relationship strained under the pressure, with occasional sharp exchanges that had never been part of their communication before. My own relationship with Rachel temporarily suffered too. Despite her assurances that I'd done the right thing, there was an awkwardness between us, a new hesitation in our conversations, as if the shock of that day had created a thin barrier neither of us quite knew how to breach. During our first coffee date after the shower, 2 weeks into the scandal, Rachel finally addressed it directly. "I feel like something's different between us," she said, stirring her decaf latte absently. "And I hate it." "I know," I admitted. "I think part of me is still waiting for you to blame me for ruining your shower." Rachel looked genuinely surprised. "Sam, that's the last thing on my mind. If anything, I'm grateful you spared me from finding out in front of everyone. Your mom doesn't see it that way." Rachel sighed deeply. "Mom has always been territorial about me. She's had a hard time accepting that sometimes you understand what I need better than she does. This situation just highlighted that for her. I never meant to come between you and your family. You didn't, Rachel assured me, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You've been my family since we were 16. This whole nightmare has actually shown me who I can really count on, and you and Marcus are at the top of that list. Those words began the healing process between us, restoring the easy comfort of our friendship just when Rachel needed it most. 8 weeks after the baby shower incident, I stood in a hospital room decorated with blue balloons and stuffed animals, holding a tiny newborn wrapped in a soft blanket. Grace Elizabeth Thompson had arrived 2 weeks early but perfectly healthy, weighing 6 pounds and 3 ounces. Despite all the fear and uncertainty that had shadowed the final months of pregnancy, Rachel had delivered a beautiful, healthy daughter with no complications. The journey to this moment had been anything but smooth. The tests on Thompson's special supplements had eventually revealed they contained mostly standard prenatal vitamins with some herbal additions. Nothing overtly harmful, but not the revolutionary formulation he had claimed. Rachel's twice-weekly appointments with Dr. Melissa Carter, the compassionate specialist who took over her care, had shown steady, normal development despite the stress of the situation. When Rachel went into early labor at 38 weeks, the new medical team was fully prepared. Dr. Carter oversaw the delivery personally, with a neonatal specialist standing by just in case. Kevin recorded everything on a checklist they had prepared together, ensuring each step followed the birth plan they had meticulously created with their new medical team. I was the first person they called after Grace was born, even before notifying their parents. When I arrived at the hospital with Marcus, Rachel was sitting up in bed, looking tired but radiant, cradling her daughter against her chest. "We want you to be her godmother," Rachel said as she carefully transferred the sleeping baby into my arms. "There's no one else we would trust more." The weight of that tiny body in my arms brought tears to my eyes. After everything we'd been through, the years of Rachel's fertility struggles, the shock of Thompson's deception, the anxiety of the final months, this perfect little girl represented the ultimate triumph over adversity. "She's absolutely beautiful," I whispered, gently touching her impossibly small fingers. "Hello, Grace. I'm your Aunt Sam, and I've been waiting a very long time to meet you." As I held Grace, I reflected on how this crisis had ultimately strengthened rather than damaged the relationships that mattered most. The honest conversation Rachel and I had shared at the coffee shop had cleared the air between us, allowing our friendship to deepen in new ways. The weeks of accompanying her to medical appointments and support group meetings had created a different kind of bond, one forged through adversity rather than shared fun. Even Rachel's relationship with her mother had evolved. After initially blaming Marcus and me for how the situation was handled, Judith eventually acknowledged that we had acted out of love for Rachel. The shared worry over the pregnancy had given mother and daughter a chance to communicate more openly than they had in years. "Mom actually apologized to me," Rachel had confided during one of her final prenatal appointments. "She said she's always been a little jealous of how close we are, but seeing how you've supported me through this nightmare made her realize that having you in my life makes it better, not lesser." The Thompson case continued to develop in the background of our lives. He was facing multiple charges, his practice permanently closed. The hospital had implemented new verification procedures for all medical staff, and a class action lawsuit was in progress on behalf of affected patients. Rachel and Kevin had decided not to join the lawsuit, choosing instead to focus their energy on their new family rather than prolonged legal proceedings. "Grace doesn't need parents who are consumed by anger and lawsuits," Rachel explained when questioned about their decision. "She needs us present and positive." I had learned important lessons of my own through this experience. I'd always prided myself on being the perfect friend, the one who created flawless baby showers and knew exactly what Rachel needed. The Thompson crisis had humbled me, showing that sometimes life delivers challenges no amount of planning can anticipate. Perfect events matter far less than authentic support during imperfect moments. I'd also gained a new appreciation for Marcus's judgment. His decision to pull us out of the shower had initially seemed impulsive and embarrassing, but it had been the right call. His medical training had given him insight into the gravity of the situation that I initially lacked. Our relationship had grown stronger as I recognized that trust sometimes means following your partner's lead, even when you don't fully understand their reasoning in the moment. As Grace began to fuss in my arms, I gently returned her to Rachel, watching as my friend naturally adjusted her position to comfort her daughter. The ease with which she shifted into motherhood after years of longing for this role brought fresh tears to my eyes. "You were made for this," I told her softly. Rachel smiled up at me, her eyes clear and peaceful despite her exhaustion. "I couldn't have gotten here without you, Sam." Not just the baby shower drama, but all of it, every disappointment, every doctor's appointment, every time I needed someone to remind me not to give up hope. Kevin returned from the cafeteria with coffee for everyone, settling into the chair beside Rachel's bed. Marcus examined Grace with gentle, professional hands, pronouncing her absolutely perfect from a medical standpoint. As we sat together in that hospital room, the four of us plus tiny Grace, I realized we had all been transformed by this experience. The baby shower incident that had seemed so catastrophic in the moment had actually been the beginning of something important, a reminder that true friendship means seeing what others miss, speaking uncomfortable truths, and standing firm in the face of criticism when you know you're acting out of love. Grace Elizabeth Thompson, with her tiny fingers and button nose, would grow up surrounded by people who had learned the true meaning of loyalty and trust through the circumstances of her arrival. That seemed like a precious gift in itself. As I watch Grace sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms today, I wonder how many moments in our lives we miss because we're focused on the wrong things. Have you ever had a friend who saw what no one else did, who risked your momentary happiness to protect your long-term well-being? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about friendship, motherhood, and the moments that change everything. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most disruptive moments lead to our greatest blessings.